When someone shares an experience, even though they're there at the same thing, they have a completely different experience. If I live in a family with five siblings, you're going to have five very different experiences of how it was to be raised in that family because you have a different body than your siblings. You have a different brain that perceives things differently than the other siblings. You have a different way of interacting with your parents because your nervous system activates something different in their nervous systems, or you're a gender that activates that. So you're going to have different experiences because of the body that you're in and the way things. Okay. So that's one piece. Okay. Now going back to the group, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my experience. When I share my experience, I'm not saying this was the only reality that happened. Zooming back into this group, this is what we do every week when we meet. Someone says what they're experiencing, we process that within their experience in the timeline that they're in with their ancestry. When you witness someone doing that, you might have resonance around your family of origin stuff or your ancestry. This is important because when you're witnessing someone else do their thing and you get activated, and I advise you within the group, if you're activated, write it down or do the visualization for you or put your hand there and see what's happening. What we're doing is practicing what happens when we come into contact with someone else. We rub against their boundary or how their resonance is, and then something comes up. Does that make sense? And the grounding thing is nothing wrong with me. My circle size can't change. Nothing wrong with you. Your circle size can't change, even if you hurt me. What is the data? Okay, so everything we look at is the data, which is going to be very different for you, Celia, than for you, Nikki. Because that data might be something you need to expel, and that data might be something that someone needs to add into their soup. Does that make sense? Many voice messages. Let me see which one I should mention. The one that was like, I'm really scared about ice, and what if I get detained? I don't know if anyone heard that. It was very intense, and I am apologizing if it triggered anyone. And I am also grateful for those who kept listening to help me kind of resource because I needed to let someone know so they could hold it with me, right? Because this is something that's going to activate other people in the room about, do I dare go out into the world? Do I dare go out into the world and be who I am fully and stay safe? Does that make sense? So I was telling you, I'm scared to go out. And I'm going to tell you, thank God I did. What happens when we risk being seen, being vulnerable? We risk being seen and held. But the key is, right? I was risking being seen and held from my functional adult. And I needed all of these other insecurities. Like I had told you, I made a mistake within the group. I had crossed a boundary. I had done this other thing. And I'm feeling a little overwhelmed because I'm not sleeping. All these vulnerabilities were practice for my functional adult to learn something from each of them. Oh, Judy's wounded child was activated because she started to count on the group. And then that boundary got murky because then she got confused around being able to say the truth because her adaptive tween would always overgive to feel belonging. Oh, and then her adaptive teenager started to control and say, you're not my friends. You're only cycle breakers. We're going to have this boundary here. Oh, all of those boundary crossings, all of those mistakes were actually fertilizer, required nutrients that allowed the functional adult to grow. They were not mistakes. They were necessary to get one piece of what I'm actually trying to build right now. I hope you're drawing, Celia. I see. Thank you to help us process it in the visual world. Okay. So I'm not going to process the whole group. I'm going to process the bit that I've nibbled on. Okay. It's the top level. And we have the person who started it, Geo. Don't expand your circle size, Geo. You were like the fire, the kindling. Am I recording? I am. We can't take ourselves seriously. We can, but then we lose the joy because if we take ourselves too seriously, who's driving? Anyone. If we take ourselves too seriously, teen, yes. Oh, teenager. I know. You want to get an A on this project. We cannot get an A on this project. It's not graded. At the end of the life, when you're at your wake, you're dead, but everyone else is at your wake. They're not going to take out an answer book and be like, Judy, when she was 50, she should not have done that thing. B minus. There's not a fucking answer guide to your life. You cannot get an A plus. There's nothing more than a 4.0. Celia. Gold stars for everybody. At the end of your life, you're dead. Do you know how many people are dead while they're living right now? I was one of them. Sometimes I wish I could go back because it's a lot easier in some ways. It's not so scary when I'm numb. Okay? So zooming out, I have so much empathy for people who do not want to wake up. You don't have to take responsibility for anything. You can blame it on everybody else. And then when you die, you don't have any responsibility. The freedom of choice is huge here. That is the basis of living as well. Remember, your circle size doesn't change no matter what you decide to do. If you decide to wake up, same size circle. If you decide to stay asleep and blaming everybody and not taking responsibility, same size circle. I'm not going to judge. You're the one who has to live your life, right? I'm just creating a space and a container for you to be able to go, oh, I'm making a conscious decision. How does it feel in my body? I'm going to translate that. And then how I translate it, how I see it, creates my reality and vice versa. Okay? So if I'm driving for my teenager, I'm going to have a very narrow view. So the group started like this. I talked about the boundaries, and there was a member who was saying they were having a feeling. And the moment I started to attune to the group and the member, all of my notes I didn't need anymore. It's very similar to when I'm in this space. Okay? What that experience is, and I want you to start seeing if you can do that for yourselves too. We all do it. It's almost this feeling of flow. I'm connected, or I have an intuition, or I think I'm supposed to talk to this person, or it's just this sense of knowing on another level. Okay. So what happened was this person had an experience, and then I just followed the intuition was, I think you need to stand up, right? Because the thing that they said was, I'm still here. He comes from a Lebanon, indigenous, colonized by Romans, Greek, Ottoman Empire, French, and Israel and bombings and things. So it was very intense. And when he stood, he was like, I'm on fire. And thankfully, he had someone from his family there too. So I brought her next to him. And she had a different experience. She's here for another reason. Okay? And it landed differently in her, raised as female. Very patriarchy society. Patriarchal society, okay? So it was a different experience. They were up. And what I sensed was, Huge collective trauma. Level 9, which we know is close to genocide. When I tapped into that, I was like, okay, we need to resource. Within this group, I go, everyone activate your roots, drain this, help us drain it. Because we were in person, we were physically able to join. Physically, body wise, and nervous system wise. It was a completely different experience. So I invited folks who shared that being colonized experience, and I had them join those two people. So on one side of the room, we had the majority of the people, because this space, my friends, was majority marginalized. I'm going to tell you the most of the healing spaces that I'm in are pretty fucking white. It has to be. The story I make up is it's majority white because those are the ones who feel safe enough to be vulnerable for some opening. Okay. So it was people of color, trans, non-binary, LGBTQ community, immigrants. Okay. So it was the majority of the room were up there together. Okay. And the image was this: Tiananmen Square, the person standing against the tank, one person, big tank. Okay. And I said, that's the image I have. What about you? And I started to check in with each person because they were part of a different experience. I'm having chills right now, even just repeating it. So I want you to tap into your nervous system to see what's happening, because me recounting it is also what I'm doing is I'm digesting and providing something for you to taste. We had folks from Korea, folks from China, folks from Africa, from Haiti. And I was able to, while they were standing together, quote unquote, supporting this one person who was having this experience of standing up to the oppressor, saying, I am still here. Everyone in the group were able to tap into their own collective trauma and drain at the same time. Just notice what happens. We do this every week together when we visit the different places. And it's coming up from, I don't want to leave my kid. I was like, oh, let's go there. So zooming out for a second, just explaining what we do together each week, because it's so much more clear now, is you bring a mundane situation that you have a hard time with, and then we connect it to the context. The context is always connected to collective trauma. Okay? Always connected to collective trauma. But if we don't clear out the impact, the charge of the collective trauma, we're always going to just focus on the little thing. But why do I keep feeling like that? What's wrong with me? Because it's the teenager going, I need to control everything. Right? And control is an illusion. So as we were clearing out, I had another impulse to bring up the other folks, because that person was able to clear out from Lebanon. They felt resourced. They were clear. They were like, I feel like a phoenix, just risen from the ashes. And then I had folks who are from Africa, from enslaved histories, who started getting activated. And what I did was I moved them to the front. So again, whoever's in the front is going to be resourced by all these people in the back. Physically, energetically, and because then I'm directly saying, I'm here with you. We're all here for you. And they were able to clear something, but their trauma, because of enslavement, was attached, entangled with the enslaver, the colonizer. Okay? So that's when I invited the other members from the group who were just sitting. And it was so cool. And so I invited them and I said, please come and support. And one of them was a significant person in this person's life who is white. Okay? And in the support, what happened was a reconciliation of the energy exchange. Labor was stolen from certain bodies. And so what happened in that moment was collectively, we were able to reconcile and go, your energy, your nervous system needs to go back in here. Not because you, person, did this, but because you, person, are connected to the ancestry of these people who benefited. And so now, in this moment, in this, it's like 40-minute, this whole thing was happening. There was a shift. The person who was needing the support, who has never been able to receive any support because of the level of harm that African Americans have endured for generation after fucking generation, invulnerable, okay, was able to allow people to put their hands on them, their toes on their feet and their heels, and receive support and not feel terrified or set up for harm. And they were able to receive it. And they said, oh my God, I have never felt so connected. Sobbing, sobbing. And then I was able to check in. How is this going for Korea? How's this going for Haiti? How's this going for... Because they were sitting in representation to their ancestry. Okay? It was so fucking intense. And it was so fucking gorgeous. Because at the end of it, everyone stood together, shoulder to shoulder. I am still here. Because what we realized for the colonizers was they were forced to make these impossible decisions and couldn't clear it out because of the moral injury. So just pretended like it didn't happen, right? So zooming out, I could not have done this group without the cycle breakers preparing my nervous system. When I say I'm grateful to each of you, I fucking mean I could not have done this, right? Every little one-on-one that I do privately with you, every group thing that I do with you, all added to this. What am I saying? I'm not saying my circle size is big, friends. I am not your fucking guru. I am telling you from my nervous system to yours, this is what you can do all of the time. Is you can just start to zoom out and go, okay, nothing wrong with me, nothing wrong with them. They're having a bad day. And I'm going to go this way because I don't want to have to deal with it. Okay? Anything that happens to you, it's data and a puzzle piece. Stop taking it so seriously. You can do whatever you want, right? No judgment. Okay? So in leaving that, I had a huge release and another layer of opening. Not of healing, because there's nothing wrong with me, just of clearing so I can see a little bit more clear. And I have this settledness now. I have so much more faith. I have so much more hope. We're exactly where we're supposed to be in this timeline right now. With all the shit that's happening, it's the contrast that we need to wake up if we choose to have that sense of faith is so fucking profound and scary. Rest in peace is not machismo. Yes, burn it out. Okay, good. Oh, now I see the shirt. I was like, what is that from?